So from talking to our clients, when they first join us, they're typically people who are doing some of the right things, right? And one of the things that everyone tells you to do is to make sure you've got strong passwords. And strong passwords, they got to the point of being ridiculous, right? So you're looking at 12 characters with dashes, with numbers, with capitals, and all of these things. No one can remember them. You're using a password manager. But the fact is having a super strong password in a world of AI and supercomputers actually very useful now. Is there more that we could be doing?
There's absolutely more we could be doing. Like you said with passwords, I mean, most of us geeks, we have password managers, but most regular people, they would rely on one password because realistically, the amount of things you need a password for, it's just easier to use one password and variate it slightly, which is
Exactly.
maybe easier, but it's highly, highly insecure. So essentially, one way around it is what's called multi-factor authentication. So
Hmm.
essentially, that adds an extra layer of authentication after your password. So essentially, you could use an app such as Microsoft Authenticator. Google have one as well, and it generates a random typically a six-digit code, say every 30 seconds, for example. So after you've entered your password, you then have to use the authenticator code, which obviously changes every time, to fully log in. Now, let's say you just have a password and someone gets access to that password, hack, in a dump, whatever. It's easy for them to just log straight in. Especially if they've got your email address, it's a lot easier to just get in and have access to all your files. Now, if you've got your password as well as a multi-factor authentication, which is typically on your mobile phone,
Hmm.
they would need access to that as well, which makes it very, very much more secure form of security and authentication than just having a password alone. So that's something that is quite common you'll see these days. But even if you just have a password, most apps, most websites will push you quite aggressively if you're Microsoft as well, will aggressively push you to using MFA because nobody wants a hack, especially from weak passwords, and especially if it's a password that you've been reusing from different sites and different applications.
Yeah, and that there's so many things you just pulled on there that I'm struggling to figure out where to go next. But um, the first thing is that when you talk about passwords that you've reused, so there've been so many hacks right now that most of the passwords that you've used over the past 10 years are already out in the public domain. And by public domain, you can Google yourself and look with the word password, and you might actually find yourself in a Reddit thread somewhere with a password that you've used. If you know how to get onto the dark web, you will definitely find passwords that you've used previously. And I remember I was at an IT conference about a week ago where they were talking about people using passwords when they first adopted it, and literally because it was Newcastle, for example, in the early 2000s, the vast majority of the passwords were Shearer. If you don't know, Alan Shearer was a football player for Newcastle, probably one of the best football players they've ever had.
Yeah.
Then they said, now you need to have a password that's letters and numbers. Cool. So they went Shearer 9. Number 9 was Alan Shearer's number on his shirt. Then they said you needed 8 characters. Then it went from
oh,
Shearer to Shearer 9 to Shearer 09. So
oh,
humans are not good at passwords. It's not something
exactly.
that we should be doing. And in a world where essentially, if you're a hacker right now, passwords, no matter how long they they're not even an inconvenience. It's
Yes,
as simple as brushing away a fly for you on a day-to-day basis to get into any password that you have. And
exactly.
when we talk about multi-factor authentication, even that is not as resolute as it used to be. But with the one-time codes that people you can either generate through the app that you're talking about or get a text, we can see where the technology is heading because you mentioned Microsoft and Google have these authenticator apps. These are the people that are telling us to use these codes. But they've also shifted the technology now as well, where they're using passkeys, which is basically using your fingerprint or your face to log in for them to verify you. So the future of security is biometric. We're already doing it on our phones. We got rid of codes for our phones years ago. We went from thumbprints to face, and now it's going to apply to everything else that we do. So it's a really interesting question of whether the should passwords even exist anymore.
That is a question that has been popping up quite a lot. It's an interesting one because there's the thing about level of trust. There's a lot of people that are going to be like, hang on a minute, um, do I really want my biometrics stored? I mean, you're already doing it to some degree on your iPhone, but as far, going by what Apple say, all of your biometrics are stored on the device. They're not stored in a remote server on the cloud anywhere. So while these new techniques of passwordless access and authentication are really good, they're a lot more secure. The uptake, it it's still somewhat lacking, I believe. There are a lot of people that don't really see it as the go-to. All they know is a password. Oh, now I've got to put in another authentication key. It keeps changing. Oh God, there's this new thing now. I've got to put that in. So again, it all goes back to education, user education, constant learning, constant awareness of the latest techniques that are used, and just to hammer home that point that the reason that we're using things like biometrics, Windows Hello, passkeys, is to make sure your data is more secure and just to make sure there's less breaches of data and hacks.
Exactly. And if you're a care provider listening to this and thinking about adding biometrics to your system, personally, I'm not a tech person, but I 100% think it's where the future is. If the
Yes.
big guys are making the investments, the small guys should follow as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And if you're worried about your staff uptaking it, with biometrics, with any technology, you need to give people a good reason to change. And
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, the biggest reason to change for a lot of people is because I want to have my job. And this is the system that we're adopting here, right? Because let's be
To
real,
put it bluntly, yeah.
but it's the reality of it, right? They had to do a CRB check because they wanted a job. No one wants to do a CRB check. They had to do a
Yep.
password or get some sort of ID card to get into the building because they
Yep.
wanted a job. Now, if you want to
Yep.
maintain a job and continue to deliver great services to the people under our care, as well as pay your bills, through us at least, this is the next step. This is where we're headed. So I do understand that people are going to be concerned and people have challenges, but let's be real. As much as Kerry, you gave the example of Apple not storing your face in the cloud somewhere. The fact
Yep.
that you can search in your phone book or in your iCloud photos for a particular person and it can find the face of the person. So you can search baby and it will show every picture of a baby that's in your iPhotos, right? If you
Yep.
share that on the iCloud, your face is on the cloud.
Yes.
If you've ever put a picture on Instagram or on Facebook, they know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
So the idea of your biometrics being public, it's too late. But they've already got your face. So if you're a person that exists on the internet in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a LinkedIn profile or
Yeah.
someone's ever taken a picture of you and posted it on the internet, your face is already on. Like we go to Heathrow and just for the sake of not queuing, we give
Yeah.
them everything. They're scanning our retinas. It's all been given away already.
Just
Now
to
let's
differentiate, though, just to differentiate, it's
go on.
not public. Even though it might be stored somewhere, technically it's stored securely, we hope. So for it to be public means everybody can have access to it. So it's a leap of faith, so to speak, that the
Well,
providers that who are asking you to make this step have things as secure as they say they do. So yeah, it's all about trust at the end of the day. Do
well,
you
yeah,
trust it? Not, you know.
and admittedly, our technology providers use the highest level of security available. So
Yeah.
we use the same that our technology providers use the same security as Apple, Google, Amazon. The biggest companies in the world when it comes to technology are using the same stuff that we're using. So
Yes.
we're doing our very best. But this is a constantly moving target. So if you're worried about your biometrics, I agree that you should
Yeah.
that it's a rational concern, but your
Yeah.
face is already on the internet regardless of who you are because someone
Exactly.
has taken a picture of you at a wedding somewhere. You've been in the back of someone else's photo and that's on the internet somewhere, without even meaning to. So the reality of it is this is where technology is heading. This is where security is heading. And if you're a care provider who wants to stay ahead of the curve, because it won't be long before Ofsted, the CQC, and everyone else starts mandating this before it goes into cyber essentials or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not going to be long because everything that is standard now was brand new at some point and people complained.
Exactly.
Give
Exactly.
it 10 years, we're going to be in the exact same place where we're going to be scanning our face and fingers to get into everything, and no one's
Yeah.
going to complain anymore.
Yeah. And nobody wants to be revealed as the source of the hack, even if it was, not their fault. Well, hardly going to be a case where it's deliberate. But no one really wants that kind of attention to say, I was the source of the hack because of carelessness. I mean, yes, it happens. It happens to the best of us. But as long as we educate ourselves, as long as care providers educate themselves and their staff, then that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and sorry, and the last thing I wanted to say on this, a lot of people will be saying, "Ah, but we don't have the budget to do so. We don't have to." I guarantee you, the second you get hacked, you'll find some money. So rather than so rather than go through the stress of things going wrong before you do the right thing,
Yeah.
make the investment as early as you can. Find a way to make it make sense because it truly is an investment, and it does make sense when you weigh up the risk of do we are we open or are we closed? Are we able to provide care or not? That's the chance you're taking, and it doesn't feel like that every single day. But every day that you give that the door is open for a hacker to get into your system, or for an employee, a disgruntled employee, to decide, you know what, f these guys,
Yeah. I'm just going to get my own
right?
back.
And that's usually one of the two things that happened: disgruntled employees, or there was some sort of security error. And a disgruntled employee doesn't necessarily mean someone who hates you guys. It could just be someone who thinks they should have got a promotion, and you know, good and well that they were gonna be terrible, but they believe that that job was rightfully theirs, and now they're disgruntled. It could be
Yeah.
someone who didn't get the same level of pay rise as someone else in the team. All of these
Oh,
small things
yeah.
could be the factor. The person that does out again at the conference, how they found someone who was responsible for a data breach is they went through the list of all the people that didn't turn up to the Christmas party that didn't have a good reason to be there, because you start to see who's disgruntled and who's constantly complaining, who's not happy here but needs to be here to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Those are the people that will open the door for your facility to potentially be shut down. So
Really.
take the precautions,
Yeah.
take the steps.